This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello there, good afternoon, and welcome to The Drive Home with Harry Waters. Now, I imagine that none of you are actually driving home as it is, because I also imagine that you are probably there on your holiday, relaxing and enjoying the glorious rays of sunshine that are bound to be on you in this beautiful August day. I, on the other hand, am not enjoying it because it is about 40 degrees here, and we will be reaching 46 degrees in not very long. So today I'll talk about our special guest very shortly, but before that I am going to share with you the word of the day. It's a very apt word at the moment, obviously. It is vaccine. It is vaccine. Now, I'm sure as many of you who are listening, the thousands of you who are listening, millions even, are well aware the first ever vaccine was by a genius named Edward Jenner, and it was for smallpox. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware, but smallpox, the vaccine actually came from cowpox. Edward Jenner noticed that milkmaids weren't getting smallpox, so what he decided to do was find a young volunteer. Now, I'm not sure how much of a volunteer this young man was or how much he paid the family, but he found a young volunteer to be injected with cowpox and then injected shortly afterwards with the deadly smallpox. Now, it turned out it worked great, and he did, in fact, find the very first vaccine. Now, I don't know how many of you are fans of Latin, but the fact I live in Spain, I have quite a lot of Latin words within my new vocabulary. And vaca is actually the Spanish word for cow, and it is in fact the Latin word for cow. So the word vaccine means to come from a cow. So when you're getting your vaccine, your vaccination, you're down there getting your jab, just have a nice think about cows. Also think about how wonderful cows are, and also think about their environmental impact and how you don't actually need to eat any cows whatsoever. So there you go. There's our story of the word of the day, a vaccine that comes from vaca, which is a cow. So now, as I'm sure you can hear in the background there, preparing herself for this auspicious occasion, we have somebody who actually welcomed me onto her podcast just last week. And she was here. Oh, she's coming back, don't worry. She was here, but then she disappeared, and now she's come back again. Oh, that gave me a fright. It is Erin, so I'm going to invite her in to say hello and introduce herself and tell us a little bit about the wonderful world of podcasting.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. It's like every single Zoom call, isn't it? Open it. Hi, can you hear me?
No, do you know what it was? I went to call in and then it said I had to verify my account. So I was like desperately scrabbling around in my email to verify it, but it's all okay now. So hi, Harry Waters, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, yeah. I'm really good. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You inviting me. And also, after our last chat, I didn't quite feel I had enough Erin. I needed a bit more Erin. So yeah, I thought, you know what better place to go than Teachers Talk Radio?
And
yeah, we are teachers, yes. And we do talk.
We do. I've got a feeling you talk a bit more than me, though.
I've always been, I don't know if the word good at is the right word for it, but I do remember coming home from holiday once, and I'd been away with my family for a good couple of weeks. We used to go camping in France for our holidays. And yeah, I remember coming back, and when we got home, my mum sort of stopped and just said, can you just shut up? I was like, why? What? And she said, well, for the last 2 weeks, you've been speaking non-stop. And she said, and that includes when you were sleeping. So apparently I would even talk when I was sleeping. So yeah, it's a habit. I'm not sure. It's certainly a habit.
It just depends, doesn't it? I think most of the time it's good because it's very easy to meet people and stuff. Like when I was young, I was definitely known as a chatterbox. That was the word. But as you get older and you kind of like people less, and you just it's a little for me. It's much harder now to make friends, but it's probably because I don't drink anymore as well.
I also don't drink. So yeah, I also find it quite intolerable if you get somewhere, arrive somewhere, and you would generally be playing catch up, but as you don't catch up anymore, you're just like, oh, wow, adults are actually just like children.
Got worse, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, louder and more opinionated.
Definitely more obnoxious. Well, actually, that's debatable. I don't teach kids, and there's a reason. I have to say, they wouldn't be my. I just don't have the time. Do you know what it is? It's the volume and the shrieking. I just don't have the tolerance for it.
That's fair enough. I like kids. I like teaching kids. I'm one of those weird teachers, as I was talking to Ewan about last week. I'm one of those weird kind of jack of all teachers, and I like teaching all the different classes, but it does very much depend on my mood. So, usually at the start if I'm teaching in the afternoon, at the start, I'll be all ready for kids. But anytime after sort of 6, 7 in the afternoon, I'm not really a kid person anymore. I'm more into teenage zone. And then after that, when it gets to late, it's definitely adult time for me. I don't want to be dealing with, stroppy teenagers who haven't yet eaten their dinner at kind of 9:30 at night, which is quite often the case here in Spain.
Yeah, you do eat late, don't you? Yeah, I really enjoyed your chat last week with Ewan. Is he a colleague of yours?
He's an ex-colleague and a co-trainer, I guess. We do training sessions together, which is really nice. So we work together for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. But he lives just around the corner from me, and my daughter is his daughter's best friend. They go to swimming practice together and stuff like that. So we do have a number of training sessions that we do online together, which is something really weird because when I used to do training sessions, it was always just me. I'd stand at the front of 50, 60, 100 people and deliver my training session, and you'd have the kind of feedback from the audience. I've noticed going online that dual training sessions are actually probably preferable to the individual ones, especially in like a webinar situation. So if it is just you speaking to 300 people in a chat box, when there's just one of you, it can get a bit, lecturing and a bit biased actually. So we've done a few sessions together. One in Spain, we did one in Germany, obviously all from the comfort of our living rooms.
Nice. And I think, if you have a good dynamic with someone, then I think, that's even better for the students as well, because I'm sure there's a little bit of banter going on there as well, is there?
Yes, Bants Central. I think that's how we refer to it. So there's certainly a fair number of jokes thrown around while we're chatting. That's for sure. It's nice to have that other person to kind of play off and chat with, as it were. But you also like training teachers, don't you, and teaching people. So tell us a bit more about what you do. Okay,
well, yeah, I mean, I am just a regular old teacher of mainly young adults at the moment living in Ireland. But I have done some teacher training sessions with teachers from Spain doing Ca.l, which was interesting, and just sort of general workshops with French high school teachers. But I'd love to get more into teacher training. But in Ireland, I think it's quite difficult to find someone who's going to help you with that. As a EFL teacher, money isn't really something that is that grows on trees for us. So but some schools will pay, will help you pay for the training, but it's very hard to find those schools at the moment. And I think also and I don't know if this is a lot of teachers or not, if anyone can this resonates, but you do get quite comfortable in your job, because it is an enjoyable job at the end of the day, and you can get a lot of pleasure out of it, but it's very easy just to coast for a long time in the same position.
Yeah.
And during lockdown, I really sort of decided I really wanted to do more and push forward with my podcast. I have a podcast, Everything EFL, where I offer tips and advice for teachers as well. And that's slowly growing, which is really, really nice. And I post a little bit of content on Everything EFL and on Facebook and Instagram, little just under 1 minute videos of little tips of what I'm doing. Because I personally don't have much of an attention span. So I just sort of assume that most people don't as well. So all of my videos are under a minute. So you can just have a quick watch and then move on with your day.
Really useful as well when it's under a minute, because it can go live on your feed as well. So it can go straight to your feed and it doesn't have to go to IGTV. Something I'm slowly learning through all of this. It's a wonderful podcast, by the way, everybody. It's one I definitely recommend you listen to. She had a wonderful guest last week. He talked quite a lot. She has some.
I couldn't get a word in edgeways.
No, she couldn't. She was like, "I'm coming on your show, so I can do the same." No, it was an absolute pleasure, and I really like it. I mean, I've not listened to all of them. Hands up, I haven't listened to all of them. I haven't had time. There are quite a lot of podcasts out there to listen to, and I definitely would say that this is one that's worth, particularly if you are a TEFL teacher, if you are involved in EFL, get on there and have a look at the guests. There are some really great guests on there with great ideas, and also Erin's own ideas are fantastic. So get involved, get listening.
You're making me blush.
It's lucky we're on radio and not on video. Although trick of the trade, I can see Erin.
We're mute zooming.
Yes, exactly.
For the interaction, for the crack, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. So it meant I had to put clothes on and everything, which is not okay in 40-degree heat. I left my fan outside as well. I don't know obviously not outside. It would be redundant up there. No electricity and all that in the outside. But anyway, I have just also tweeted this, so everybody knows that we are talking live now, so people can come along and have a listen.
Good.
I
told all my colleagues as well. I announced it in the meeting today. At the end of the meeting, any other business, I was like, "Yep, can I just be a bit self-indulgent and just tell everyone?" And I did. Exactly,
and why not?
Yes.
It's absolutely, it's very important that your colleagues are there. So was it an online meeting? I take it.
Yeah, we have one every Wednesday, just a quick 10-minute. And do you know what? It's really nice because, online teaching, it's nice to get out of bed a bit later, and not do the commute, because I have a horrible commute. But just there's no contact there's no staff room, there's no contact with your colleagues, there's no hugs, there's no exchange of ideas, there's none of that. And it's that's what I'm finding hard to deal with. And it's starting to get to me a little bit now. I was kind of all right, but I've been at it again for a few months, and it really does. I'm desperately miss everybody. And I will even, cheerfully make that commute to get back into the staff room, but I don't know when that's going to happen. And that's the thing as well. It just seems to be never ending.
Yeah. The staff room thing is something that, since, I now am freelance, I work generally from home. And it is that kind of the staff room aspect that's, I don't know, I find it really hard to not have that connection, which is something I really love. I spoke 3 weeks ago to Simon Perlman from the TEFL Development Hub, and that's something that they've kind of invigorated me with. They've really given, they've got a virtual coffee where we just sit around and talk nonsense to each other, sometimes about TEFL, sometimes about cats, other times about weather. But it's that whole staff room feel, but they also have a whole bunch of other stuff on there as well. But yeah, it's really nice to have that environment again. Really good to have that kind of chat with people, because it's something I really miss. I mean, obviously I've got my wife and my daughter here, and there are a few people in the community, but they don't want to listen to me talking TEFL.
That's
and
the
there's
thing.
something teachers like to do is talk about
Talk
what
shop.
they do. Yeah, you know, be it a history teacher, be it a maths teacher. We like to talk about teaching. We like to talk about our students. We like to complain about our students. We like to show off about our students. You know, it's what we do, and it's what we really love. So, you know, for me, it's something that I also really miss. And yeah, hugs. I miss hugs.
I was just about to say, what I'm really looking forward to is the first hug that I share with everybody. Definitely, yeah, physical contact. You don't realize you need it until you can't have it.
Yeah, I got both of my jabs quite a while back. Back in April, I think June, I got my second jab. So, you know, a week later, 2 weeks later, I was telling all my friends, "Oh, I can lick your face now."
Did they do that to begin with?
Well, no, they all kind of looked at me a bit weird, like, "What are you talking about? I can lick your face." I was like, "Well, I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm just saying I can, you know." And you know, obviously,
yeah, it's nice to have options.
Exactly. I mean, even though we've had jabs, everybody, I just want to point out, no face licking. You can still transmit things and stuff. So do still wear your masks, even if you've had Freedom Day. Here in Spain, we're allowed to take our masks off on the street, but if you're in any kind of enclosed environment, you're not. But I still wear my mask, depending on which street I'm on. I live in a village of about 7,000 people. So also when it's 40 odd degrees outside, there aren't that many people out there. And I tell you what, a mask in 40 something degree heat is not very nice.
You can barely breathe. It's bad enough if you go into like a warm shop, you know. I have problems then, but yeah, that I couldn't take that kind of heat.
Yeah, it's not particularly pleasant. I did put a post today. We have a Facebook group called TEFL Teachers in Seville, and it was a post basically saying, "Here are my top tips to stay cool." And it was, you know, drink water, wear wet clothes, and sit in front of a fan.
Nice.
Eat watermelon. Don't go outside. You know, do your shopping now and don't go outside. So there were those basic tips in that little group that I like to, you know, share ideas on. So we've talked a little bit about your wonderful podcast and encourage people to join in, to sign up, to follow, subscribe. All of the other things that you have to do. It's obviously follow on a few of them. It's subscribe on another one. I get lost with all these different social medias. So while I mentioned that, why don't we talk about that? Social media.
Social media. Absolutely.
I hate social media.
Yes, it really is like. It produces all sorts of ambivalent feelings. It's great for contact because you're like me. You don't live where your family are anymore. Your friends are probably all scattered. But
both of them,
yeah. It can be very toxic, and you really have to pick your tribe. Really, like my Instagram, I really resisted having an Instagram account until last year when we started the podcast. Me and my ex-podcast partner Shane, and I was responsible for the social media, so I had to have an Instagram account, but I just followed teachers and that's it. And now I've got this amazing teaching community on Instagram that I never knew were there because I just didn't. I'm quite ignorant when it comes to social media. So that platform's lovely, you know.
Hashtag teachers of Instagram.
So that's really nice. Yeah, it inspired me to create, I think it was episode 40, Unleash Your Creative Beast, at the beginning of the year. I think I was a little bit manic because like Christmas was quite depressing because I was over here and I was missing my family and all of that. And I just went into this like flurry of productivity in January and knocked out loads of podcasts, wrote loads of episodes, did loads of social media. And I got talking to some lovely people and that kind of inspired me to be really creative, and just all this productivity happened and it was mad. But it's difficult now. I'm teaching. I wasn't teaching then. Now I'm teaching. It's a different story because no, my eyes are in bits after a lesson. And by the end of the week, I can barely look at the TV. I can't watch more than one episode of RuPaul's Drag Race and I have to give up. And it's really upsetting. But I can't face doing anything else after that. And there's so much I want to do. And at the moment, I just can't physically do it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've not really experienced much of the toxic side of social media. I don't know if that's because I'm a white middle-class man and toxic things don't tend to happen to us. I understand my privilege in that respect, obviously. For me, and I love the tribes thing you mentioned there as well. I mean, on LinkedIn, there's loads of wonderful people with loads of fantastic content coming out of there, and as you say, on Instagram, there's all of this other stuff as well. I'm not great with Twitter. In fact, I use Twitter more now, not only to bug Greta, but also because of this wonderful radio show. But then there's Facebook as well, and for me, it's the sheer quantity of it, and because my business, my livelihood kind of depends on me being active on social media, because Renewable English, my climate change awareness course, is done through social media, YouTube as well, obviously, that I completely forgot. I just find myself on it so much, and it's that distinction between when am I working, when am I not working. I have to engage with content. I have to produce content every day. That's part of my working day. And then I'll find I've spent 2 hours on social media, and it's like, it doesn't feel like work, because what I used to use social media for was that contact with friends and family, to show off that I was traveling and send all my beautiful photos of me at the beach and those kind of things. And now it's like, I have to do it. So, that 2 hours should count towards my working day. But then I feel bad because, I've got materials to create. I've got training sessions to prepare. And then on top of all of that, of course, I've got my lessons. August, I don't have any lessons. So I have been able to prepare a bit of my Series 2 for Renewable English, which has been really good. And I have been able to do a bit of the activism work I've been doing with my young activists on Renewable English. It's called Activating Activism. And it's talking to young activists there. So I've been able to focus a bit more attention to that. But it's just the amount of time that it takes to create the content, to get out there, but then to engage with everything as well. It's just,
yeah. Go on.
No, it does my head in. That's it. It's just drives me absolutely mental.
Yeah, and like on top of your work doing it, that's like if when I wasn't working, I was fine. I enjoyed it. But now I don't, and you do have to engage, and you do have to post comments on people's pages to let them know you're there and stuff. But to me, there's like a balance between kind of having to do it, but also being sincere. And I don't want to be posting tons of insincere comments just because I feel like I have to engage as well. It's like
Absolutely.
This kind of balance. It's really tough. It's really, really tough. But like I've kind of got my little videos down now. I just because I was sitting there going, what am I going to produce 3 times a week for videos? And my first idea is they're all under a minute, like I said, so they're nice and short. But also I just take inspiration from what I'm doing in the lesson. Like, what am I doing today, or what did I do today? Oh, that's something. Yeah. And so I just make videos about what I'm doing now. So it's very much being in the present. But it's working for me. So I'm quite happy with that. It takes 5 minutes in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
I'm trying to get more into video content for particularly for Instagram, because it is turning into a video content platform. But even like the kind of carousel things, they just take forever to create. And I think making videos wouldn't make more sense. I've actually got some lovely videos lined up for next week, all about no prep, green activities for your classroom. I created a worksheet for Twinkle. They asked me to do it, so I'm going to share those with the world and let them all know about the wonderful. Well, no and low prep activities are kind of my thing. When I have when I do teacher training, whatever session I'm doing, there's always at least 5 no prep activities in there, no prep, no resources, things you can just go into the classroom and do, because you know, no matter what content I've got, you know, if it's teachers want stuff that's easy to put into their classroom. They don't want, well, in my experience, they don't want endless theory. Perhaps they go to a particular session, but they want practical stuff, particularly if they're at a conference where they go to 5 different sessions. Maybe they'll go to one on kind of neurological theory because that like interests them. But then they just want stuff they can take straight into the classroom. So yeah, that's my kind of aim usually. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go away for the news and first ad break. So if I can ask you to hit the little green mute button on your screen, if you can find it. Otherwise, just be really quiet. And then after that, when we come back, we're going to be getting to the crux of the matter, and we're going to be talking about some Ca.l horror stories. Hang on, there's even an audio effect here. There we go. Someone walking down the corridor scarily again. So yeah, we will. I have to wait for that sound to go away now. We will have some Ca.l horror stories coming up very soon. First time for the news and a little ad break. So we'll see you in about 6 minutes.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. Congratulations are in order for sixth form students across the UK who received their A-level or Highers results yesterday following a second challenging and interrupted academic year. A record 395,770 students have been accepted onto their first choice of full-time course in the UK, which is up 8% from last year. Almost 45% of the grades awarded were an A or A star, compared to a third of results back in 2019. A parallel increase has been noted across the top grades for the Scottish Higher National Qualification. The data coming in from yesterday's results does, however, show a continuance in the widening gap between demographics who achieve highly in their exams and those who do not. For example, students studying in London are more likely to achieve higher grades than their northern counterparts, with 47.9% of results being an A or A star in London, compared to 39.2% in the northeast. Ofqual's findings also highlighted an increasing percentage gap for historically disadvantaged groups. Black students, students on free school meals, and students from levels of deprivation cited as very high, all received lower grades on average than their peers. The gender gap has continued to grow, with female students now outperforming males in maths, and the gap between male and female students for English language tripling over the last 2 years. Finally, the gap between private and state schools has widened. 70% of grades awarded by private schools were top marks, compared with 39.3% of those at secondary comprehensive schools. Lee Elliott Major, Professor of Social Mobility at the University of Exeter, as quoted in The Guardian, said, "It is deeply concerning to see widening socio-economic divides in this year's A-level results, confirming our worst fears. The pandemic has exacerbated educational inequalities outside and inside the school gates. The government urgently needs to set out its plans for a return to a national exam system from next year that is fair to all pupils, irrespective of what school they attend or home that they come from." That was your latest Teachers Talk Radio News.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsia puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.CRE8TIVEresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TTRadio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Ca.l and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introducing the Leadership Masterclass series by Diana Osagi. Learn how to ditch your fears and develop your leadership confidence. How to deal with difficult colleagues. How to thrive when you lead in a challenging environment. And how to get colleagues to buy into your vision. Join Diana for her online leadership masterclasses starting on the 10th of July and running all the way through the summer. These sessions are the perfect way to prepare and refresh for the next academic year and beyond. Book your place at courageousleadership.co.uk/events now. The first 50 leaders to sign up get an additional free mini coaching session with Diana herself. Don't miss this. Courageous Leadership Masterclasses at courageousleadership.co.uk/events.
Well, there we go. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening to those wonderful adverts. I ask everybody who comes on, do you love stationery, Erin?
Oh God, yes.
What's your favourite?
Probably bits of card. I love printing out questions on bits of coloured card and putting them around the room. I always get students to stand up and move around when they do a discussion in groups. I put the questions around the room and they have to move around from question to question, and it just looks nice. Or if you're doing matching activities, I tend to put it on coloured card because it just looks nice, you know?
It does indeed. It does
Yeah.
indeed. And obviously you reuse those again and again and again.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've got like a whole box full of flashcards upstairs, you know.
There you go.
As we all do.
Exactly. I've got a whole cellar full of them, I think, at the moment. So I'm carefully selecting those. Before we talk about our TEFL horror stories, now I know that both of us are actually living in European countries at the moment, EU countries. I'm in Spain and you are in the wonderful
Ireland.
There you go. So we heard there about the A-level results in the UK. Now, I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of standardized exams in general. I think a lot of it should be down to the Spanish system they have here is they do half and half. You could probably hear my dog going mad at the moment there. They do half comes from a standardized exam, a university entrance exam, and the other half comes from exams at school and like assessments that teachers have done, which I think is a fairly good idea because there obviously is that issue of bias, and that the one that really struck me in the news there was that 70% of the results awarded at private schools were A's or above. I mean, honestly, that to me, just that literally says I've bought my grade. Like, I mean, here, if you go to a private school, it's difficult to fail. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, you can get your way through private school and private university here as long as you've got money. Like with most things in life, if you've got money, you're probably pretty much set to do whatever you want. But yeah, that fact, that statistic was pretty shocking, to be honest.
Yes and no.
70, well, not surprising, but shocking. I thought it was a pretty horrific statistic.
Yeah.
I don't
and
think
also,
that's really okay.
No, it's not. And then, like, if you kind of look way on the other end of that spectrum, you've got the people who are set up to fail.
Yeah.
And it just seems that disparity is just getting bigger and bigger, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, it's just so messed up. Everything's very, very messed up. And I think the pandemic has given us all time to really sort of sit and think about it and actually see it happening in America as well, you know.
Yeah.
With the BLM movement and everything. I'm going to be a bit cynical and say it might make a small change, but I don't think it's going to really change things systematically.
No, I don't think it will. What I think will happen, though, is next year, that if and when they get back to standardized exams, which I imagine they will, there's going to be a huge drop in results. You know, I remember when I was younger, when I did my A-levels, I remember my A-level results, unlike the education minister in the UK claims he doesn't remember his A-level results. I thought everybody did. But anyway, I remember every year, you know, there would be a kind of steady increase and everyone would say, oh, they're getting easier, they're getting easier, they're getting easier. But to see that 45% of grades given were an A and 70% in private schools were an A, I mean, I just don't really understand how that's possible. And I understand there's obviously going to be teacher bias and stuff like that, and it might be more difficult for the troublesome students to get a better grade because it's hard for teachers to separate, you know, the work from the person and so on. But to me, 70% of people with an A grade is just it's impossible.
Yeah, but who's going to question them? Who's going to really question it?
Well, exactly.
No one. So that's just what that is, unfortunately.
Exactly, it is what it is. We're not in that system anyway, so we don't have to talk too much about it. I could probably talk to you all day long about exams, their benefits, their opposite of benefits, the negatives behind them. Good English in there, Harry. So you're an English teacher, you say, Harry? Yeah, that's right. The opposite
Drawbacks,
of benefits.
There you go. An student would say.
There you go. Drawbacks. There you go. Antonyms, Harry. Come on. So we do teach English as a foreign language. I teach it to I do teach it to people all over the world now, but I was teaching it to monolingual classes before. You teach it to all sorts, don't you?
I do, mainly young adults, university students. We get a lot of university groups from particular countries coming over. But I have taught everything from, you know, children to 72-year-olds with literacy issues. So, but I think I'm quite comfortable where I am. Yeah. I have nothing but admiration for teachers who work in mainstream schools and stuff, but I don't want to have that battle of students not being motivated. I don't have the energy to deal with that. I just want to go in, teach a bunch of willing students and you know, do my, you know, do that. That's what I want to do.
I did see a great tweet this week from Tom, who he posted about, you know, teachers shouldn't be getting the blame for, you know, exam results. And absolutely, as a teacher, you can't be to blame. Yes, there are bad teachers out there, but, you know, particularly with the language, there's so much extra work that has to come into it from the side of the students. They have to do so much extra work on their part. They need to be motivated. So, yeah, it is really difficult in a school to do that, to find that kind of motivation within those students, and I have nothing but admiration for especially those top teachers in schools who go in, day out, and they hammer away at it, because it can be a thankless task, and it's not like we're paid very well. We're not in Finland.
And I'm just going to go on record and say, I think those teachers deserve that 6 weeks off. You know, people piss and moan about it, but they deserve it. It's a Bernie outy job.
Yeah, I think more than deserve. I think they need it, and they need the half term. Something I've found here in Spain is we get 11 weeks for the summer, but there are no half terms throughout the year. So there's 11 weeks now. There's about 3 weeks at Christmas, and then there's a week at Easter, and that's like all of the holidays kind of all bunched into one. And I've found that when Easter comes late, so you have January the 7th, and it's been January the 7th until April the 15th in the past, without any holiday. I think there's one like long weekend in that whole time. Teachers deserve. They don't just deserve it, but they need the break. 100%.
Thingy, if you're working in a private EFL school, there is no break at all, really. Summer is the peak time. So that is just absolute madness, like from July to end of August, just chaos. And then it slows down, and you have a couple of weeks off at Christmas, but you go back in January, starts picking up at Easter, and it's just, there's no break unless you apply and take a holiday yourself.
Yeah,
which invariably you don't get paid to take. So swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
Exactly. And when you're burnt out, and when you're tired, and when you're exhausted, it often leads to horrible things happening. Horrible things like some Ca.l horror stories.
I love the smooth segue there.
Oh, it's beautiful, wasn't it?
You're getting the hang of this.
There you go. I did that. So as I say, Ca.l horror stories.
You've been dying to do that, haven't you?
I have. I definitely have. There's all these other ones as well, but I'm not sure they'd be appropriate. Beep, whistle, ooh, clap.
We'll see.
But yeah,
we'll see.
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell a story, and you fill in the sound effects as and when you feel appropriate.
Hopefully not this one.
I think that might be quite an appropriate one, actually, for the end of this story.
Very good news. So I'm going to hand over to you with some Ca.l horror stories.
Oh dear.
If you would like to get the ball rolling, as it were.
Okay, strap in, people. I'm going to start with probably my first ever EFL teaching experience. As I think a lot of CELTA graduates invariably do, they go straight into a summer school scenario, 6 weeks of madness. And that was my first job way back in the early 2000s. It was a school in just south of London. No names, obviously. And we arrived, and it was very apparent that the whole thing was just a complete shambles. There was no organisation. So the director of studies actually scarpered after the first or second night. We got up and we found a note pinned to the door that basically said, "Look, I'm really sorry, I can't do this. If you want to keep in touch, here's my email," which we all thought was really weird. So another teacher took over. And then it was just chaos, but it was also really enjoyable. But there was, like when you have the summer schools, you have the classes and you have the activities. And we had this activity leader. I'm going to call him Phil, okay? Not his real name. He was the head. He was like he was to organize the activities, the coach trips, anything like that. And he had a group of kind of 20-somethings under him, doing his bidding. So he was very, very tall and very well built, but he was not the sharpest tool in the box by any stretch. And he would strut around with a megaphone and a clipboard.
The clipboard of power.
And the megaphone of power, yes. Oh, yeah, he had a right strut on him when he had those two things. So the first coach trip we went on, we were all standing, I think we were going to Stonehenge or something, 100 kids, 150 kids, whatever. We're all standing around, milling around the coaches. No one knew what coach they were on. No one knew where this Phil was. And he sort of appeared with his clipboard and just started just walking around, but not communicating with anyone. And then we asked him, do you have any lists? Do you have any class lists for the coaches? No. okay, well, that's quite dangerous, isn't it? We're going to take 150 kids to Stonehenge and we don't have any documented evidence of who they are, what coach they're on. Can't remember what happened with that, but that was what that was. And then it all culminated in the final evening we had of the 6 weeks. We had a student staff talent show. And they were, you know, singing, dancing, sketches, the usual. So Phil comes on stage. No one knows what he's going to do. He appears on stage in a tracksuit, and In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins starts playing. He then proceeds to strip off his tracksuit to reveal a very small pair of posing trunks and a very hairless, oiled up body. He then proceeds to start posing, you know, like when you see bodybuilders at bodybuilder shows, they flex their biceps and they turn around and they stretch their leg out. He then proceeded to start posing on stage. And at one point he did a headstand and he opened his legs in this V. Now, bear in mind, the audience are 12 to 16 years old, and it was so inappropriate. And we were all just sitting there going, what is going on? So that was my that's a small portion of my summer school experience. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that was I can imagine the posing pouch was probably even worse than the disorganized coaches.
Yes, it was just so bizarre. It was so poorly judged, and you know, he was really into it. And one of the teachers said he was backstage, like doing press ups and like stuff beforehand, obviously to, like, you know, make his veins pop and stuff. It was just very bizarre. The whole thing.
That is brutal. I've not got any stripping stories. I mean, apart from my own, but obviously I wouldn't do that around 12-year-old students.
Well, you'd think, you know.
Well, yeah, I tend not to do. I tend to save most of my strips for, you know, my wife.
Indoors.
Yeah, exactly. Indoors and in-laws. I think that's the rule, isn't it? Stripping only for indoors and in-laws. So yeah, that's one hell of an ending to the summer school. That's for sure. So my first horror story, I guess. Well, it was probably when I came here. And I'd been to a TEFL fair to find a job because I wanted to move here to Seville. I've been to a TEFL fair and I'd dolled myself up. Obviously, it was 40-something degrees, but I had, you know, a fancy scarf on because I thought it looked cool.
Did you get it in a charity shop?
This was quite a while back. No, I did actually. I got it at a vintage market in Thailand.
Amazing.
So I don't think my carbon footprint really was very good for that one. I didn't go to Thailand to get it. I actually went by bus to Thailand from Vietnam. Anyway,
that's next week.
Yeah, exactly. Next week, Harry's bus journeys. Could fit that in somewhere. So yeah, I put this outfit on, and I got to the TEFL fair, and as I say, it was 40-something degrees, and I was quite into my light greys at the time. It was not light grey by any stretch of the imagination. What I was wearing after that, I was bucketing down with sweat. So, you know, I had these giant sweat patches under my armpits, and didn't exactly look the part, but, you know, I still went round. You know, I tried to use my scarf to cover my sweat patches as much as possible, and eventually things dried out because it's, you know, it was a nice air-conditioned place. And I spoke to various different places, and, you know, I got myself an interview for a place here in Seville, and they were like, "Yeah, great, come on down, come and have an interview with us another day." So I got the train from Cordoba, which is about an hour and a half. Got here at about 10:30 when they said they opened. They actually didn't open till 12, so I had an hour and a half there of waiting in the July heat to go to my interview. Went along, got the job, went to the interview. It was great, fantastic. Soon after that, I found out that I actually hadn't been hired because of my TEFL prowess, which I had immediately assumed. I'd actually been hired because when I was younger, I was actually quite good looking. So it was one of the very few times in my life that I kind of felt a bit objectified. And yeah, so
welcome to our world.
well, yeah, exactly. It was one of those few occasions. And yeah, and then this is actually where I met my wife at this place of work, and I owe a great deal of debt to these people and to my boss at the time. But I think the first 6 months of my job there were fairly uncomfortable with. Now, I'm not going to go as far as call it sexual harassment because it wasn't, but there was definitely a lot of horribly uncomfortable flirtatiousness, which I didn't shut down, so I'm not putting any onus on anybody for this whatsoever. This was nobody's fault, and I could have easily stopped it myself with a few words. I probably encouraged it, to be honest. But yeah, so that first horror story was just that kind of from the sweat infested interview to 6 months of feeling incredibly awkward at work, but not actually speaking up and saying anything about it. So not quite as bad as the next horror story that I'll obviously talk about. The one after is probably not as bad. So I'll hand back over to you now for your horror story.
I'd love just to pick up on a point, though, that you made, and I think a lot of people need to understand this. You didn't say anything. It's very difficult, isn't it? And this is what a lot of people don't understand when women complain about stuff like this. First of all, where is the line? That's the first thing. Like you said yourself, I wouldn't call it sexual harassment, but because you don't know where the line is for you, you don't know where the line is for anybody else. It's different for everyone. And it is hard to shut it down because you're embarrassed. It's often said in front of other people. Your first reaction is to giggle nervously. You don't want to cause a scene and go, don't say, it's so hard to speak up and say something.
I also I don't know if the kind of narcissistic side of me was kind of flattered at first. Like, this is, I feel special.
Well, how old were you?
24.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I might have been 26, but yeah,
you see
I was
things
young.
very differently now. At the time it was probably a bit of fun, but you see things very, very differently because you're that much older now.
Yeah, and I do remember moments of just being like, "Is this okay? I don't think this is okay."
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm not laying any blame on. I could easily have stopped it. I didn't. I was as much of the problem in that case that I didn't stop it. That I didn't say. That I didn't feel comfortable with it, and I have a wonderful, very, very professional relationship with this person now, and incredibly, we're very, very professional about everything. It was just that kind of awkward first 6 months of weirdness, but yeah, she is super professional though. In that moment, maybe I probably should have done something about it.
Easier said than done.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
Exactly. Your next horror story.
Okay, so this was a good few years ago when I lived in England, and I worked for a school in the south of England. It was a school primarily for teenagers from Germany. They kind of bussed in and out on a weekly basis, and it was run by this German psychopath whose go-to phrase was, "Everyone's replaceable." So that should pretty much tell you how much he valued his staff.
Great instilling confidence there in the.
Oh man, it was toxic. So many things. Yeah, so the students came in and out like cattle. Busfuls and busfuls of them, and they paid a lot of money to be bussed over, and then they got put in host families, and they've got this really packed schedule of activities and a few lessons thrown in. And I found out from someone who worked there that every bus had a group leader on it who was barely 19. And they were instructed to say to each student, you have to give me £25 cash now for the transport. So that went in his back pocket. And I calculated the busiest summer I was there, 12 8,000 students went through that school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
But that's
brutal. Like even £1 each is still making a killing.
Yeah, it's obscene. And you know, he paid peanuts. I got promoted from a teacher to assistant director of studies, and my pay packet was atrocious, absolutely atrocious. But I wanted the experience, and pay is generally poor in the south of England, even though it's quite an affluent place. It's really badly paid. So yeah, I stayed there. What else? The schedule for the teachers was brutal. They would start at about, say, 5 to 9 in the morning, and then finish at about 5 to 12. That's one class. And then they'd have 15 minutes to eat their lunch, leave the classroom, set up the new classroom, and get all the students in. There was a 15-minute break, you know, and then another 3-4 hours with like sort of really tiny breaks, but no decent break. And we tried, like me and the DOS, we really tried our hardest to change things, you know, and we basically said, this is ridiculous. Like, this is like, come on, there has to be, but oh no, we can't, and just excuse after excuse. And then we were inspected by the British Council, and I asked them, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Like, and this somehow got back to the owner that I had been questioning them, and I'd handed in my notice because I was moving to Ireland, but he tried his best to get me out before my notice period. And I went to I got called into the office. His stepson said, basically, he's been trying to get rid of you since you complained to the British Council. And I'm like, first of all, how the fuck does he know that? And secondly, yeah, of course I'm going to question it. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So he ended up sort of pushing me out a little bit before my notice period, but I was so desperate to get out. He was just disgusting. And I did so much, not to blow my own trumpet, but I did so much. Like, I got like stuff in for the teachers. They had nothing, you know. I tried so hard to help the teachers and change things, but you're just like, it's like banging your head against a brick wall. Absolutely banging your head against a brick wall. But just a really horrible human being, no redeeming features. And as far as I know, the school's still going and he's raking it in.
Oh, that is one of the really big issues with a lot of people who I know that have had like horror stories. They are the people who have started the business because they see it as a money making scheme. So they'll come in. A businessman will come in and be like, right, this is a language school. It's a bit like politicians making educational policy for us. You know, they haven't got a clue, so why are they doing it? So people have seen this quick buck and they've gone in there. And I actually worked for a summer school here, and it was a brand new school. It was in the summer when I was desperate for work because my contract had come to an end, and I couldn't find like here in Seville. I've got a daughter here. There weren't many summer schools in the city, and I found this place, and it was a bit like that. And he was just like, yeah, we've got a methodology for teaching and this, that, and the other. And I was like, mate, this methodology is nonsense for a start. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm not teaching that. I had to create. It was only 3 weeks, so I created a whole new like summer course for these kids for those 3 weeks. I was like, I'm not using this nonsense method, mate. You've got no idea about teaching. You are just a businessman who's seen an opportunity, gone to the richest area in town and put an English academy in there and hope that people would just go flock into it. They didn't in the end, and it's not open anymore. So the ending to that story wasn't as bad as yours, with that guy still going. That is awful. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Me too. I really felt peed off at the end because there's no justice. Like, you know, he managed to push me out, and that was what that was. And it's really, I was very bitter about that for quite a long time. And it's like, I've had 2 positions in academic management, and they've both been so toxic. And I think, I mean, for me, that's what stopped me from, you know, within the company I'm in anyway. Like, I'm not, you know, I don't want to. The jobs come up, and I don't want them because the experience that I've had is so horrible and so thankless. And you just get put upon all the time. Like, like when you're first a teacher and you walk past the academic management office and you're like, what are they doing all day sitting at their computer? I can tell you exactly what they're doing. They've got 3 million things on their to-do list. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But you get no thanks for it.
No, none at all. None at all. And yeah, it is awful that we go through those things. But, as Kelly Clarkson once sang beautifully, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Oh, love me some Kelly.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? In fact, I'm going to listen to it straight after this. And I'll dance with my daughter like a crazy man.
Excellent. Nothing like it.
Oh, exactly. So yeah, my next horror story isn't actually my story. It didn't happen to me. It happened at an academy that I worked at. It happened the year before I got there, but it is a very well publicized story within the civilian TEFL teachers community. Civilian being people from Seville, obviously, not those who aren't in service. So there was a student who was, how do I put it nicely, an absolute pain in the arse. I think that's putting it nicely, by all accounts. He was horrible. He was rude. He was disrespectful, as we often find as TEFL teachers, particularly in the private, sector. Their students are fairly affluent, so they feel like they're your boss because they're paying your wages. I just did inverted commas there. Yeah, so this kid was like really a piece of work. He was horrible. He made this guy's life an absolute nightmare. The guy was he was miserable. He didn't want to go to work. He couldn't hack it anymore. He was pushed to the absolute limit. So one day he put a bin over this kid's head and gaffer taped him to the chair, turned him round and stuck him in the corner. Now,
how old was he?
The kid?
Yeah.
The kid was 12.
Oh my God.
Now, I have dealt with some fairly awful students in my time, and I've wanted to do that a lot of times, but it's something that you can't really do. So he lost his job, unsurprisingly. Didn't go to prison, though, luckily for him. But then that kind of also shone a light on something that happened to me when I was working in a private school. And it was something for me that was actually 1,000 times worse than that. Now, that was not okay. That was physical bullying with a child, which is never okay. But yeah,
very gratifying, I imagine.
Very, very gratifying. You're not allowed to hit them anymore, so obviously just tie them to a chair. I do not condone tying children to chairs, unless you're playing the mummy game, when you do it with toilet roll, which is really fun but also incredibly wasteful. So if you're going to play that game, make sure you use the toilet paper. Don't use toilet paper to do it, though. Toilet paper is not good for recycling or reusing.
I'll bear that in mind. Yes.
So that led me to it's not a TEFL story, but it is a school story. I had an awful student. Again, he was in 3rd grade, 4th grade. No, he was in 3rd grade. So he was my daughter's age. He was 8 going on 9. And he was a crybaby. He would cry at everything, and but he wouldn't just cry a bit. Like, he had one of those whale cries. Like, his team lost in a game, he cried. Like, he would really wail. Like, the top of his was no. One of those horrible cries that
vile
makes you want to put a bin on his head and tie him to a chair, kind of cries. But not the kind of thing you do, because it's not okay. So it was one of those things that was incredibly stressful for teachers. But one day, a teacher had him, and he broke down, as he frequently did. So that teacher took him from his class to his little sister's class, who were in 1st grade. So they were 6. Yeah, they were 6. And she showed him to the class that his sister was in and said, look, can you see any of these younger kids crying? They're not crying, so it's not okay for you to cry. Okay, that's already quite bad. That's already, you know, not particularly nice. Then there were these, so in the middle of the corridors, there were mini like patios that they called the fishbowl, because it was a glass patio with some fake grass in the middle, where, you know, is a nice cool place for students to go and read, or, you know, play chess or do something that the school liked to show off they were doing all these lovely things for. So what she then did was put him in there and lock the door. And it became, when playtime came around, he was in there crying and banging on the door. So obviously all the students and teachers are coming down, and she was there pointing at him, saying, "Look at Pablo crying again." And other teachers were there laughing and pointing, until another teacher and I arrived, and we were just like, "What's going on here?" And she was like, "He's crying." I was like, "It's Pablo. That's what he does. He cries. What are you doing? How long's he been in here?" "Oh, about 10 minutes. First, I showed him to his sister's class." I was like, "You cannot do that. You cannot do that." So I reported it as well to the director, because that is not okay. Like, that is, you know, that is physical and mental bullying. You know, it was horrifying. You know, we let him out straight away, but we were, you know, we got him out of there immediately. But me and this other teacher, Alethea, was like, "What is going on here? That is scarring for a child." You know, that is
It's
not okay.
He's not learning anything from that at all.
No.
It's just humiliation. It's just a reflection of her frustration with him.
And it just, like, it blew my mind that in this day and age that teachers were still like doing that kind of thing. For me, that's, you know, I'd much rather be smacked on the back of the hand with a ruler than be, you know, mocked in front of humiliated in front of the entire school by a teacher, by a senior teacher as well. You know, she wasn't one of the young teachers. Now, that school's famous for bringing in teachers. Yeah, that school's famous for bringing them in directly from the university. So it's, you know, you go to the school, you pay your way through the school, you pay your way through the university, then you come back to the school as a teacher. She wasn't one of those. She was like the oldest teacher on staff. She was 46, 47.
Wow.
And she kept doing that, and we're just, it was...
That's yeah. I mean, there are times I think I've only ever lost it with one student once, and it was an adult, and it was a combination of like weeks of her, like, she didn't want to be in the class. She'd done the test to move up to the next level, but she had to wait a week, and she was pissed off about it. So she was constantly talking, and then she was talking when we were trying to listen to her listening, and the other students were getting frustrated as well. And it was 10 minutes towards the end of the lesson, and I just said to her, like, "I'm done, get out." And I did say it in a raised voice, and she did like get upset and complain. But I just told my boss, "Look, this is what happened," and it was like, okay.
Yeah, well, there are times when you're within your right. I'm not going to deny, my top has been blown on the odd occasion, which was surprising to the students, because I am a very relaxed kind of person. You know, I let most stuff wash over me. You know, I don't let bad behavior go unnoticed. I do notice it. I do speak to students. I do take them aside. I deal with each student in their own individual way, the way they need to be dealt with. I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all punishment.
No,
I think that's pretty awful, to be honest. But there have been times when I've not been particularly impressed with a student's behavior, should we say, and it's maybe gone a bit too far. And you may or may not notice, I do have quite a loud voice. So just that kind of one sharp shout usually kind of brings an end to any of that. And I'd probably say I've had maybe one of those every 2 years over the last 15 years. Yeah, I can count them on both hands. Luckily, I've got 6 fingers on each hand, obviously, for those of you who aren't watching. I don't, by the way. I'm just trying to be funny. So yeah, that was a fairly awful horror story, but not from my point of view, more from the kind of kids' point of view. My last horror story, I don't know if you have another one or if...
I do want to just tell you about my little mate who I used to work with in Dublin.
Tell me about your little mate from Dublin. Is it a leprechaun?
Almost. She's about 4'10". She's actually originally from Goa in India. and she's about 4'10", and she's the fieriest little thing you've ever met. She's like, she's pure fire, you know. And she said she came in really annoyed one lunchtime from the lesson, and she said, because she has an Indian accent, you know, even though English is her first language, #native speakerism. And she said a student basically told her that she shouldn't be in her class, that she shouldn't be an English teacher because she doesn't, you know, speak English, kind of thing. So she took his books, threw them out the classroom, and told him to apologize. And he went out and went straight up to the office to our director of studies to complain, and she just told him to go back and apologize. So that's nice when they have your back, because I think that's an issue as well. A lot of the time the academic team doesn't have your back, but like having been in that position, it's very difficult to navigate between management and teachers. They're such different creatures, and their needs and their motivations and their focuses are so different. But you know, you do sometimes wish that there was a little bit more support there for the teachers from the academic team sometimes.
That for me is one of the big keys. Like with a few of the places that I've worked, and I've worked in a few places, and it is the support. Now I go and I'll go in there and I will say to them, look, back me or sack me. Like, if you don't think I can do my job properly, if you believe that what I've done to this student is so awful, then sack me. But otherwise, I want you to be supporting me. I want you to stand up to the parents. Oh, but the parents are the paying customers. Don't care. If their child has been an arsehole, and I've told you that he's been an arsehole, then I would gladly like it if you could please kindly tell the parents to speak to their child and, you know, tell them. My last horror story that I'm going to share with you before we pop for our final news break, an ad break, is it was when I was teaching in Vietnam. Now I was there, I taught for 5 months in Hanoi in the north, and then I taught for 6 months in Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh City, in the south. And for the second 6 months, I worked 7 days a week minus 3 days. So I took 3 days off in that entire time. And I worked for 3 different academies. So I worked for one academy on Tuesday and Thursday nights. I worked for another one on Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights, and then I had a weekend one as well because kids went to English class at the weekends. And it was hot there. So again, I would walk to work. I'd start at 7 o'clock in the morning. By the time I got to work, I'd change my shirt because it was not just the heat, but the humidity as well.
Awful.
Yeah, it was really, really, really sweaty. Luckily, I always went to the right place. I never turned up at the wrong place. One of the academies, however, now this is the horror story one. It was, again, one of those that was looking for money. They had 3 different sites. And depending on the week, you would be at a different site. And, you know, they were all over the place within more or less the same neighborhood. But this was in 2008. I think Twitter had just come out when I was in Vietnam. America's Next Top Model was in its 2nd series, and I was watching Ellen because that's what was on TV. But anyway, that's beside the point. It was the time when Andy Roddick played Roger Federer in the final, and they went to like 10-all in the final set of Wimbledon. But anyway, so it was 2008-ish. And the classes were done, we were told we had to do them with the direct method. Now, I don't know if anybody has ever taught with the direct method, but that is when you show the students a sentence, you repeat the sentence, and they repeat the sentence back to you. That's
inspiring.
Oh, absolutely inspiring. And then at the end of each lesson, they would repeat the different sentences they'd learned, and they would have those set phrases, and you've done travel because you've spent an hour using the set phrases for travel. So, you know, obviously, when those people go on holiday, they'll use those 5 to 6 set phrases. You know, but later on, you know, so you got them at first. After you've done them once, obviously you do them again, but with gaps in. And then you continue. Now, the best thing about this place was they were done, wait for it, with an overhead projector.
Oh, wow. That's a phrase I haven't heard for 10 years or so.
They
Probably
didn't
more.
even use those when I was finishing school. Like when I was finishing, like they used them when I was at lower school, when I was sort of 9, 10 years old. But after that, there were computers, there were other things. You know, I remember in my upper school, in my high school, in the last year I was there, which was 2001 or two, we had an interactive whiteboard. Like,
Whoop.
so this is 7 years after that, 6, 7 years after that, and they were overhead projections. So we got given our lesson with our 4 different overhead projections. And what was brilliant about them was they'd been written by morons. So we're teaching people these phrases. These phrases have been taught to their students for years and years and years and years and years, and they're just riddled with errors. So you're going in there and they're just all wrong. And it's like, I can't teach this phrase. So you go and you turn the lights off, you turn on your overhead projection, you do your animals, obviously, your shadow animals, because that's what you have to do when you've got an overhead projector. And then, and it drove me absolutely insane. It was impossible. But I stuck it for 3 months because I needed the money to go traveling afterwards. I learned that the direct method was not the best method. So on that note, I'm going to ask Erin to put herself on mute again. And I'm going to shoot off for our second play of the news, all about results. And again, to the teachers out there listening, congratulations to you and your students for getting through this year and for getting to results day. Here's to next year, but obviously enjoy your holidays and vacations in the meantime. So I'm going to hand you over to the news.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. Congratulations are in order for sixth form students across the UK who received their A-level or Highers results yesterday following a second challenging and interrupted academic year. A record 395,770 students have been accepted onto their first choice of full-time course in the UK, which is up 8% from last year. Almost 45% of the grades awarded were an A or A star, compared to a third of results back in 2019. A parallel increase has been noted across the top grades for the Scottish Higher National Qualification. The data coming in from yesterday's results does, however, show a continuance in the widening gap between demographics who achieve highly in their exams and those who do not. For example, students studying in London are more likely to achieve higher grades than their northern counterparts, with 47.9% of results being an A or A star in London, compared to 39.2% in the northeast. Ofqual's findings also highlighted an increasing percentage gap for historically disadvantaged groups. Black students, students on free school meals, and students from levels of deprivation cited as very high all received lower grades on average than their peers. The gender gap has continued to grow, with female students now outperforming males in maths, and the gap between male and female students for English language tripling over the last 2 years. Finally, the gap between private and state schools has widened. 70% of grades awarded by private schools were top marks, compared with 39.3% of those at secondary comprehensive schools. Lee Elliott Major, Professor of Social Mobility at the University of Exeter, as quoted in The Guardian, said, "It is deeply concerning to see widening socio-economic divides in this year's A-level results, confirming our worst fears. The pandemic has exacerbated educational inequalities outside and inside the school gates. The government urgently needs to set out its plans for a return to a national exam system from next year that is fair to all pupils, irrespective of what school they attend or home that they come from. That was your latest Teachers Talk radio news.
Just one more advert here for you then, guys.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsia puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.CRE8TIVEresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TTRadio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Ca.l and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
There we go. So I actually played the first advert again there, and not the second one, foolishly. And then because I'm so hot, my phone wouldn't recognize my fingerprint to log back into it because I'm sweating absolute buckets right now. Yeah, it's pretty warm in here, I have to say. I'm not going to forget my fan and water next week. I was just so keen to get in here and talk to you. But we've got a few minutes left. We've got a few minutes left here, Erin. So I'm going to hand the floor back over to you for some more horrors. Hang on. I'm going to hand the floor back over to you for some more horrors.
Right, get another sound. Listen to what I'm going to tell you now, and I want you to give me a sound effect at the end of this, okay?
Okay.
This is actually the second school, the German psychopath, that school. I completely forgot to tell you this. So at the end, you know, when the students left every week, there would be a certificate ceremony where they all got their certificates for attending the course. And then they would have joke certificates. Now, again, bearing in mind, these are teenagers. One certificate was for the hottest student. One certificate, wait for it, was for best bum, which a girl invariably got. And the one that was most shocking to me was the student most likely to end up in prison.
Now, I did those at school, but like as a joke, but there wasn't there were none of the body ones. There was the student most likely to end up in prison, like as amongst the students, we did it to ourselves as a joke, not like from any position of power.
I don't know who, to be honest, I don't know who voted. I don't know how they collated this.
If they had it on a frequent basis, it means that came from above. Like the idea of that came from.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So whether the students voted for it or not, that is just morally wrong. It's just
the whole school's morally wrong.
It's just not okay. Sorry, I just noticed in the reflection there that 2 of my leaves have died on the plant behind me.
Oh no! What is it?
It's
What
okay.
plant is it?
It's okay. I haven't watered that one in a while, you see, but it's okay. It'll be fine.
Is it a string of hearts?
No, well, I don't know what you call it. It's a podos, they say we call it in Spanish. But it's the one I propagated that one up there off that one anyway.
Excellent.
But
Well done.
it's just so hot that even these need to be watered every day. So it'll be fine as soon as I've chucked a bit of agua in there.
Yeah, some plants are very dramatic, aren't they?
Exactly, they're very dramatic. So yeah, but I will still give them a nice fanfare. I do love plants. As you may have noticed from my recent post on LinkedIn and Instagram about there you go, about encouraging plants in the classroom.
Yeah, I love that idea.
I really think it's something we need to bring in. Also, particularly for larger classes. I mean, I don't know if you can get every student to bring a plant in, but if you've got a few plants in there, like particularly at the end of the day, your air quality is going to be so much better. So if you're a high school, if you're teaching teenagers, chucking a bunch of plants in your classroom isn't just jolly looking, isn't just, a fun way to spend 5 minutes taking care of your plants every day, but it's actually going to have benefits for your students, for their attention spans as well, because they're not suffocating in a room full of carbon dioxide that's been, circulated for hours on end. Plants in the classroom, a really big one. We've got about 4 minutes left now. So I'm going to start slowly winding down. I don't actually have any more like real horror stories personally. Mostly, the thing that we get here is so you have to have a minimum of a B1 level of English to finish university here in Spain. Now, a B1 level is a pre-intermediate level. It's not a particularly high level, but it's also not one that you can attain particularly quickly. Unless you're incredibly dedicated. So what I've found with 2 people I've spoken to recently, they've worked really hard. They've done their 5 years at university or whatever. They've gone through the whole university thing. They're like, yeah, I'm done. I've done my practicas, which is your practice year. I don't know what it's called in English. Anyway, they've done their year working in a placement. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, they've done that.
Work experience.
Yeah, I guess so. I think you have to do it as a trainee teacher, don't you? You spend a year working in a school. So they've done their year of that, and they're like, yeah. And now all I've got left is English. So I'm sorry, what? They're like, yeah. Now all I've got left to do is English. So, and I was like, cool. So what are you doing this summer? They're like, I'm going to wait till September and get started on it in September. And it's like, you have no English. You have zero English. You have nada. No tienes nada de inglés. Absolutamente nada. Cero. You cannot speak in English. And then they're thinking, in September, I'll go to an intensive course, and in a month, I'll get my B1. I'll just cram it all in really hard. And that's the attitude and mindset of learning here in Spain is you don't really have to work particularly hard until your exam when you cram it all in and then you do your exam. And it's just been something really shocking for me. I've said to her, look, at the very least, get Duolingo. Get in there, get started, get a base knowledge, get something for when you go into the classroom. Don't just be like, I'll leave it. I'll sort of listen to some podcasts, watch, she babysits for kids. Well, watch the cartoons with them, watch Peppa Pig in English. The English in Peppa Pig is very good. It's very clear. It's very easy to understand. It's designed for toddlers. It's very easy. And it's this attitude that spreads across the whole of Spain of, you have to get this. And they've spent 5 years at university. They're like, I haven't had time to learn English. if you'd done 5 minutes a day for 5 years, then you would have a B1 level, maybe. If you'd done it well for 5 years. You might not have a B1
You'd
level.
recognise vocabulary at the very least.
Yeah, you'd have a vague understanding.
structures.
If you'd make any effort, like you don't have to go full in there, like full head on. But anyway, that was just another horror story. So I'm going to say thanks to you anyway.
Thank
It's
you,
been
Harry
lovely.
Waters.
It's been a pleasure.
Really has.
As always, everybody, get on it, get listening. I'm going to give Erin another few seconds to give herself a wee plug.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. So Everything EFL podcast, you can find it on pretty much any podcast platform. Follow me on Instagram at Everything EFL Pod and on Facebook, Everything EFL, and LinkedIn under Erin O'Byrne.
Oh, burn. Do you get that one a lot? If you ever
never.
If you ever give someone a really good cuss, so you just like, oh, burn.
I will from now on.
There you go. Exactly.
Thanks.
There you go. It's for future reference. So yeah, I do thoroughly recommend you give her a follow. Check out her videos. They're really good. I watch them. I like them. So keep it up. Keep up the good work. And
thank you.
Well, I'll be seeing and hearing from you on a regular basis, as is the glory, the marvel, the wonder of social media. And with that, I'm going to play the goodbye music. I'll be back next week with more delights for your ears. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And you'll hear me next week. And then the following week, you might even hear me live from the UK. Yes, we are considering a last-minute trip to the UK. So
do it.
You might even be able to see me in person, everybody. Line up at Cardiff Airport for autographs. Or if you want to give me a lift to have a wrist with. So that's been it. Thanks very much, everybody. I'm going to play you out with the lovely jingle.
Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.